Dr. Mendoza is an expert swine nutritionist who serves as the Director of Nutrition at the Mash-Offs, a leading family-owned pork production network in North America. For over 14 years, he has led the organization's dietary development, feed milling strategies, and large-scale live animal production research. Dr. Mendoza is going to be talking to us about when research meets reality, lessons learned from commercial-scale nursery pig research. So if you would, please help me welcome Dr. Omarh Mendoza.
Thanks a lot for that introduction. Thank you for those coming in today right after lunch. I was talking to Sheldon here to see if he had any good jokes to kind of wake up the crowd right after lunch. Unfortunately, I don't have any good ones, so you'll have to bear with me. But really, what I wanted to do today, and I really appreciate the invitation first and foremost. It's humbling to stay here in front of my peers, and also a little nerve-wracking, right? There's a lot of experience here in the room, but I know we're amongst peers and friends here, and really my objective today is just bring a bunch of questions. For those of you that saw the first speaker, Steve Lurch, we actually brought him to our company leadership event on Tax Day, April 15th. And same presentation, and we've actually been implementing some of those things. And as in our company, as members of the innovation process, sometimes we try to think about the new stuff and the shiny, Dr. Hansen. Sometimes it's just the little stuff, right? So my objective today is just talk about our experiences, but really, I've been challenging myself. We've been challenging our teams, to think differently. So I'll just share some of our thoughts. We've shared some of these with a lot of you already, and my intent is just to spark some thought and work together. At the end of the day, right? We're a pretty tight industry. We are facing the same challenges, and we just got to do better. I think we are go back to our production leaders. And bring solutions to them. So I'd be remiss to, I'm representing a bigger team. It's just myself today speaking, but a lot of the hard work is done by our innovation and our research team. So, so I just want to credit those. So this is just one slide. This is a few years ago. We've always had, for those of you that know our company, the Mash-Offs, the 5th generation farmers, and really our core values and our mission today is feeding families and building communities. And I just wanted to put that out there. Our values are service, stewardship, relationship and progress, and obviously with the help from the universities, the academic partnerships, and obviously industry, we're able to do this together. So thank you for that. So really 3 objectives today, right? At the end of the day is, challenge how we look at success in getting a pig past the nursery so that we can go to the finisher and, all the way to the shackle. In our system, we're not totally vertically integrated. We raise a pig, we sell to the customer. So really that is our objective. And really the other one, objective is to reframe or rethink or challenge ourselves. How do we think about measuring success? And we're really taking a hard look at this and putting more focus on survivability or improving morbidity and mortality at the end of the day. And obviously today with health challenge pigs, that's become a big focus. And then at the other end of the spectrum is really rethink and being a little bit vulnerable. Are we doing this research thing correct? We've been trained as scientists to do research a certain way. We still believe in it, but it is challenging today. And then that's where that gap of the research results and bringing it to production, there's still a lot of opportunity. So lessons learned. So I did frame this talk with nursery nutrition research or nursery management, but it's really thinking about, we get the pig from the sow farm, we got to get to the nursery, and overcome all those stressors. Once they're put into the feeder to market setting, at least in our system, we can get those pigs growing and not the way to the shackles. But we know we have been evolving how we raise pigs and we feed pigs in the nursery with strategies to get them to, eat better, hydrate, develop that intestinal function. But really at the end is how do we define success and how are we measuring the right outcomes? And this is a self-criticism, but, I'll mention that we got to think about this different as an industry. A lot of times we get technology, feed additives, so things like that, and there's growth performance in the nursery, but at the end of the day, can we translate at the end? So taking a hard look at this is one of our, at least my philosophy as it has been evolving is decisions got to be driven by system profitability. At the end of the day, we're got to bring these solutions to our production leadership, and we got to have things that are going to impact return on investment, and it's got to go all the way to full system value, not just short-term performance, which sometimes is really easy to do. We can do nursery trials, short-term performance, but does it really translate? So sometimes nursery weight and early growth can be overvalued with sometimes limited carryover to market. Is it going to be realized? And we know that doing full-scale market studies is going to be difficult, but sometimes there's also can be misleading to put a lot of value on a short-term biological impact. So we know growth can be a proxy. We know that healthier pigs or pigs that are thriving will grow better, but will it translate? And then really survivability at the end is the true constraint, right? It's really, we can get a pig that can get past that nursery stage and get into the feeder to market setting and really to the shackle. That's really where, for our company, that's where, where the money's made. But we often prioritize what is easy to measure, right? We can do a, 8-week nursery study, call it good, and then, make big assumptions. But then, we're accountable to production leadership. So, at the end of the day, they're relying on us to make a decision, for that return on investment. So I think, we struggle with that. So a lot of this is just challenges to our team, but also, reaching out for help as you guys, in the academic world and in the industry, have partnered with us, to solve these challenges. So challenge here, right? The metric must reflect system profitability. So for our company, as we taking a look at what is going to be the metric, it's really throughput, pigs that make it, as a full bio pig or grade A pig. So we use a metric. It's for those of you that talk to us, we use GAPC, grade A pounds per sow per year, right, which is a component of productivity of the sow farm, PSY, but a quality pig that is going to become a full value pig, right? So obviously average daily gain, feed efficiency, intake, really important. But at the end of the day, can it translate to, what our sellable product is going to be, which we don't sell pigs, we sell carcass pounds. And we know, sometimes it's easy to measure growth at the end of the nursery. Week 8, nursery weight, but will it translate in a full value pig? If it doesn't make it past the nursery, it will not, right? So that's a challenge as we continue to evaluate how we measure success. So I'll just, paint a couple examples. This is internal data. Actually, some of our work, some would have been Illinois. I think this is Mike, this is Dr. Walter, study from when he was in grad school, right? Looking at, management or environment, treatments in a nursery setting. Dr. Walter would have pigs in a restricted floor space and feeder space. And by in a week 8, there was a stark difference. Take those pigs to market, remove the stressors, pigs compensate. So did it really matter? Not really, right? So this is one example of many. This one, look at nutrition. We looked at this several years ago, study by Andres Tolosa, Michael is grad student. This study would have done at our facilities. He looked at a control, typical NRC levels for lysine, a restricted at 0.2, less SID, and then an excess, which is a tenth. And, at the end, of the nursery, obviously a negative effect of the restricted lysine. It was all through feed efficiency. You put it in the growth finish, remove the stressor. At the end of the day, it didn't matter. Overall, our wean market gain in feed efficiency was completely flat. So I just painted two examples that we see time and time again, not only in our data, but as we try to evaluate data, in this case, nutritional technologies, obviously as nutritionist for the company, that is one of my missions, to evaluate technology and nutritional feed additives. But it's just hard for us, right? This is a criticism we make to ourselves that, well, it's easy to measure, does it translate? But, I'm reaching out here is how do we rethink this? Because it's, oftentimes we see data with nursery work, and, it's just hard to put that through our model, put our hand on our heart, and tell our production leadership, yes, it will translate in 2 pounds at the end, So really hard to do. Sometimes it does, right? It's all about how that growth is created, the mechanism of action, so it's important to not dismiss that. But making a big assumption that weight at the end of the nursery will translate, can be misleading. Sometimes it will happen. Another study, was many years ago, actually. I was back in grad school, but I still like to use it as an example. Looking at feeding sows high fat levels, so no fat to, all the way to 100 pounds. And as one would expect, we created a, heavier litter. We got the data here, it was significant wean weight and piglet gain at 21 days. Actually, 2 studies, one in the fall, one in the summer, with different parity structures, but basically told us the same, right? We just put more fat through the diet. That fat went to the milk and make a fatter piglet. Took a subset of those pigs, so we had a heavier pig at weaning. Took a subset, put it in a weaner market. Those differences disappear, right? At the end of the day, we had equal morbidity, mortality in this case, gain and weight, right? So that's an expensive treatment. So the question is, can we make a pig more robust? I think pig can be more robust if it's heavier, but how do we achieve that weight? So this is a challenging topic, but we know that compensatory growth can exist. Some of those differences can be made up or, disappear. If given enough time, those pigs can compensate, right? So at the end of the day, the differences, either positive or negative, can dissipate, and, can we translate those into market? At the end, how we make our valuations is difficult. So that's back to our self-criticism, but also reaching out for help, right? Let's not overestimate something early on, because we still have a few months, and those pigs can turn it around. So we haven't figured this out. So this is, part of our, how do we go about it? So the other piece that we struggle, or things that lessons learned is, what about trial design, especially when trying to impact things like morbidity and mortality? So, using growth as a proxy, it certainly can be a good indicator, but it's not the final one. So we know that measuring survivability will require a different model. We know that you need statistical rigor. You need replication. Those can get that can get to be expensive. But a lot of the stuff that we see out there is just it's incapable of really measuring an effect on health outcomes. When really our production leadership is asking us, hey, we need more pigs, right? And as we go back to our leading indicator, leading metric of graded pounds per sow per year. And then the other piece that we get criticized, or I guess feedback, I would say, at least for us, most of our research, all of them actually are in the state of Illinois, and our teams in Iowa, always have that feedback or pushback. Hey, that was run under specific conditions, do not resemble what we do on a daily basis here in the state of Iowa, for example. So are we testing technologies or strategies under the conditions where our pigs are really being reared, and are we is this going to be a success or a failure? So back a little bit to sample size, and really for those of you that know my colleagues, this is put up by Caleb. He likes to be the number cruncher. in our company, but we know the sample size determines, ability to be sensitive in a study. So this would have been run at our facilities, our winter market research facilities, and we know it's got to take numbers. So this is an example, to measure survivability or improvements in morbidity mortality. In this case, we want to look at a 1% improvement. In this case, going from 4% nursery mortality to 3%. So that's a 1% difference. We're going to need around 2,500 pigs, and that has been proven many times again. Obviously, it is very difficult and expensive to do trials with 2,500 pigs, a lot of times. So sometimes we'll just go under that, to see if that's going to move the needle. But certainly something that we got to challenge ourselves. And it is really hard to make inferences, when we see data with, just a couple hundred pigs, right? So, the question is, is this the right model? I think it is, but are there any other models? So, this is just a reach for help and feedback from those of you that have, been faced with this challenge. Here's just one example. We have many, but, okay, let's put this example or this to the test. So in this case, this was Rachel Schmidt in 2018, master's student from Dr. Ellis. This was done at our facilities, looking at a nutrient-dense liquid in a 2x5 factorial. I'm just going to talk about the first factor, which was a nutrient-dense liquid as an electrolyte-based, just fed for 2 days. Looking at a main effects level, we had 64 replicates. Those were large pens at the time. We since remodeled that facility, 72 pigs per pen, but yielded 4,600 pigs per treatment. So now we had the numbers. So at the end of the nursery, and I should have put the weeks here, but performance differences were null. One would expect that just a 2-day administration, perhaps you don't impact those, right? But really where we saw it, right, is morbidity to mortality, right? So in this case, this study was designed to do so. It doesn't happen all the time. We can run the statistics, do the power test, but it'll more often than not, it'll help us elucidate was as a true response. But in this case, back to gain in feed efficiency can be important indicators, but really the mortality, morbidity, that's what really you can plug that in, easier into an ROI calculator. This is just an example. Again, we've spoken about this. This is data that's been 12, 15 years in the making. Combination of liquid nutrition on the front end, diet complexity, electrolytes base, and it doesn't work all the time. And what you can see from this slide is really the line in the middle, that's the baseline, and then the bar is the difference to the control relative in the study, right? So those are percentage points. So in this case, the one in the bottom, that was 1% better relative to the control. So what we can see here is, as we run this throughout the years across multiple flows, multiple times of the year, you just get this range in outcomes, right? So it's that the question is always, how many trials do we need? Well, to understand range of outcomes. So that's where repeating strategy multiple times, even though it can get expensive, it helps you understand. And sometimes it's going to go the other way, right? Those bars over here, but. Just an example, when looking at things, like health, morbidity, mortality that are hard to measure. So, bring us to this last couple of years where, we've been struggling with PRRS, and the challenge from our team is, the data that you guys are bringing us is just hard to translate. So, finally made a decision that we have, when you break a lot of your cell phone with PRRS, most of your flows are PRRS positive. So, you don't get a choice, right? You got to do research with what you have. But one of things that we decided, one of our green-to-market facilities will be dedicated, from now on, to put pigs that are, that are coming to the state of Iowa, for example. So it's normally would fill with 15,000 pigs in the facility. Due to scarcity of pigs, we had to go half of that. So we'll flow PRRS positive, infrastructure that will enable us to get weights, feed intake, and really design studies from wean to market. At the end of the day is to generate data that is biologically sound that we can bring now to our teams. Now the thing is, we need help, right? We need ideas. We work with Iowa State with Dr. Gabler. He's been great to give us ideas. We work with some of from you here in the audience. So this is just a call for help. We need to continue. Asking what else can we do? Not only nutrition, but management and environment, and obviously on the health side as well. So what are our lessons learned just from our first placement would have been in January for this pig. So this is just a summary of the observations from our teams in Iowa, raising those same pigs, but the feedback from our team in the farm, mimics, so we see high variability across sites, flows, and even within rooms, right? What's the pattern? Pigs seem actually pretty good coming in the door. They'll hold together the first couple of weeks. Obviously, the medicator's clicking, but then they'll start to crash. 2 to 3 weeks in after the break, and really starts that IC pen, intensive care pen, hospital pen really starts getting full with really sad looking pigs. That's when we see secondaries come in, and a lot of the time, even though we show you those graphs with those interventions with diet complexity, nutrient-dense liquids, our team, kind of defaults to the medicator, right? Medication versus nutrition. So we haven't cracked the code on how to go about that. So another one, of our lessons learned. We just need help there. So just from the last few months, what are the challenges that we've encountered, and we're rethinking as we go about this. If you figure it out, please reach out. But most feed additives or interventions, as we designed the studies, were to be fed during the first 2 weeks. Well, those pigs were holding pretty good. They still have some level of lactogenic immunity. I don't know. We put a lot of focus on the first few days. If that week 2 to 3 into week 4, they really start crashing, we're back to corn soy diet. So we see those pigs regress, right? It did, seems like the timing with that zero conversion status. So one criticism that we're, giving ourselves is that our timing of those interventions was just off, right? So, but then, how do we deploy those interventions? Through the diet, through the water. The bottom 10 to 20% of those pigs will look really rough, So we have limited labor, as you guys know. Caretakers and our contract growers, it's just hard to get labor, hard to do consistent treatment and care of hospital pens. But certainly we need help. We need to use technology, to fill that gap. And the other piece is, that we are just making that medicator click, right? 3 to 4 weeks in, those pigs are just seeing medications. Sometimes we cannot, put anything else. So we were thinking about, how do we go about and do research different. So certainly a challenge and a question that we have. So here's the questions. Most nutritional things that I brought to the table to my team as the thought leader in nutrition, were really off, right? When the pigs really needed it, we were on pretty simple diets, so to speak. So, but certainly unfortunately, we were not able to move the needle in terms of morbidity to mortality. We moved growth a little bit, but with a couple of things that we've done. We've done some work with collaborate with Dr. Gabler, looking at amino acid nutrition. So yeah, moved the needle on growth, but didn't really translate. We haven't given up, on that. Didn't translate to liability. So a few of the questions, right, that I'm wrestling myself is our timing. Is it off? How can we combat that fever response? I think the PRRS phenotype has been well characterized, but really, how do we combat that with that inflammation storm that the pigs are going through? And then, question, are we trying to solve that problem, too late? Because that problem is probably made at sow farm, right? So, I've heard Dr. Gabler said this multiple times. I think it's true that, the health status of the sow farm dictates the health status of the nursery. So, should we focus more on upstream interventions in the sow? Can we make that pig more robust? Obviously, as a nutritionist, 2 nutritional means, but not only limited to those, but that is really a question that we struggle with. Can we produce a more robust pig, resilient pig, through maternal nutrition or creep feeding? We were having a conversation at lunch, So what nutritional interventions in the sow? This is probably a weak spot in our shop in terms of R&D work in the sow, but certainly as an industry, right? So that's more of a question, aim at making you think and engage us, but we know that control research in sow farms is difficult and laborious and takes time, right? So, but I think we gotta think about that, right? Can we do that? Have an impact when that pig hits the nursery, give it a better chance, for success. So just finishing up here. So call to action, at least, how we think about it is, what if, and we have done this to a degree, what if, we continue to come together. This is done. I'm not saying it is not, but can we do more of university, industry, production systems, work together with shared objectives. Now, there's a lot of work being done, really cool stuff, but, can we align, right, in terms of system profitability? We get feedback from our production leadership and say, well, growth at the end of the nursery, guys, how do, at the end of the day, they're not, they're working on gaps here, on throughput, full biopigs. What if the resources we invest, there's a lot of resources going to research, but it's sometimes siloed efforts. We've done it internally. Sometimes we're doing stuff that may not relate to production. Now we do have production, inform what we do. But can we get from that siloed approach to a more collaborative, integrated approach? And what if we look at things, I was trained in nutrition. Fortunately, we get to work really closely with our veterinarians, but it's going to take the multiple disciplines, right? I don't think that's even a question. We got to have the field team, our veterinarians, the R&D people, the nutritionists, all working side by side. Instead of single input. We want to, just solve things, through the diet. It's just sometimes it's not going to be possible. So it's going to need to be integrated. And then, what about focusing on what really matters to the end producer? Every system is put a little different, and the economic drivers may be a tad different. Depends if they're completely vertically integrated or not. But at the end of the day, it's full biopigs, to market, right? So, and sometimes we just defaulted to design trials to not measure those, because they were just difficult to measure. So, last slide. Profitability, full biopigs, a pig that makes it to the shackle, we're going to get paid for. So we got to start thinking about measuring that well and designing studies so that we can bring back to our stakeholders. Growth alone, it can be a good leading indicator, but it's not the final one, right? So survivability and resilience is really what drives economics. Sometimes, research or data, just because it's difficult and expensive, right? I'm not criticizing to criticize, but we need help. Let's continue to work together to get numbers that'll help us make decisions better. No question in my mind that the continued partnership between the university, industry, and the pork producer that will yield better results. So, and at the end of the day, it's design, those studies that are going to be measuring what matters to the producers. So I think that was my last slide. I know a lot of you in the audience. We've had the discussions. I hope this is just meant to spark some, thought, engage us. But our production teams are asking for help. And, especially this last, 12 months has been really rough. So it's made us rethink a few things. So we just want to come and share again. Really appreciate the committee for inviting us. It's humbling to be speaking here in front of you. So with that, I'll thank you.